Night in Caracas had always carried a certain heaviness, but lately it felt suffocating. The streets were quieter than usual, as if the entire city was holding its breath. From the rooftop of his aging apartment building, journalist Alejandro Rivas stared across the horizon, where the flickering lights of a nearby military base glowed like restless embers. For weeks, whispers had been circulating through neighborhoods, tea houses, markets, and government offices. The United States was increasing its naval presence in the Caribbean, Venezuela was repositioning missile units, and the air was thick with accusations from both sides. Some said it was about oil, others about politics, and still others about national pride. Alejandro believed it was about all of it, and more. Inside his recorder, he documented the nervous voices of everyday people. A woman at a bakery confessed she hadn't slept in days. A taxi driver said he feared sanctions more than bombs. A university student whispered that if war broke out, he would join the resistance because there was nothing left to lose. Alejandro listened to these voices because they told the real story, a nation exhausted, cornered, and terrified of what powerful men across oceans might decide. In the presidential palace, President Silva met with his generals under dim lights that cast long shadows on marble floors. On the table lay satellite images of U.S. ships in the Caribbean, their paths inching closer to what Venezuela claimed as territorial waters. "They want dominance. They want our resources. They want us to kneel," Silva said, pounding his fist on the table. General Morales, older and calmer, warned him that even a small provocation could ignite a conflict the nation was unprepared for. Yet the pride of leadership, combined with years of external pressure, made Silva stubborn. He believed backing down now would destroy whatever sovereignty remained. Meanwhile, in Washington, intelligence officials huddled in a secure conference room, studying drone footage of Venezuelan missile sites being reactivated after years of near abandonment. Advisors debated fiercely. Some argued that the United States had a duty to intervene, to prevent Venezuela from threatening regional security. Others insisted that military pressure would only worsen an already fragile situation. But politics was its own battlefield, and elections were near. Taking a tough stance made for strong headlines. Alejandro sensed a shift in the atmosphere the following morning. The sunlight felt pale, the breeze carried a strange chill, and the chatter of the city had been replaced by muted anxiety. Even the vendors who usually joked loudly on street corners had become quiet observers of a growing storm. One wrong move from either government, one shot, one misunderstanding, could turn tension into fire. Standing once more on his rooftop, Alejandro whispered, "We are a matchbox." And deep inside, he feared that someone, somewhere, was already striking the match. The Caribbean Sea glimmered under the early morning sun, calm on the surface but carrying a storm beneath. Cutting through those waters was the U.S. Navy destroyer USS Hamilton, its metal hull slicing waves with cold precision. Commander Rachel Donovan stood on the bridge, eyes fixed on a radar screen full of Venezuelan patrol boats forming tightened defensive circles. The ship hummed with tension. Sailors spoke in hushed voices, aware that the smallest mistake could bring their country into a war half the world wanted to avoid. Donovan had her orders. Hold position, do not fire unless fired upon, avoid escalation at all costs. But she knew orders were fragile things, easily shattered by fear, adrenaline, or misinterpretation. Every few minutes, she checked communication lines, weather reports, and drone surveillance. She wanted information, certainty, anything that might prevent her from having to make a decision that would haunt her forever. Across the sea, in a Venezuelan coastal command post perched on a rocky cliff, Lieutenant Marco Yanez leaned over his binoculars, observing the foreign destroyer with a knot forming in his stomach. He was young but disciplined, raised to believe in defending his homeland no matter the threat. His orders from Caracas were strict. No foreign military vessel was to enter what Venezuela considered its sovereign waters. But like Donovan, he understood that obeying orders could mean firing the first shot of a devastating war. The situation escalated unexpectedly. A Venezuelan surveillance drone malfunctioned mid-flight, losing GPS lock and drifting toward the Hamilton. In seconds, alarms erupted across the American ship. Donovan's crew scrambled, shouting elevation angles, speed estimates, and warnings of potential impact. The drone was small, but any contact with the destroyer could be interpreted as aggression. On the Venezuelan side, Marco's team panicked as they tried desperately to regain control of the rogue machine. Sweat trickled down his temple as he imagined the consequences. If the drone hit the ship, even accidentally, the US might retaliate instantly. If the Americans shot it down, Caracas would demand a response. Either outcome set the stage for a conflict neither nation could contain. Donovan faced her decision. "Do we shoot?" her weapons officer asked. The moment stretched, heavy and suffocating. Shooting risked war. Not shooting risked lives. She clenched her jaw, unable to breathe. And then fate intervened. The drone sputtered like a dying insect, dipped sharply, and crashed harmlessly into the sea. Silence filled both command rooms. Donovan exhaled shakily. Marco sagged against his desk, whispering a prayer of relief. That useless, malfunctioning drone had nearly dragged two nations into chaos. Both officers realized the same truth. If a small machine could nearly spark a war, then the world was closer to the edge than anyone wanted to admit.